has started.
I think it's
Sir, I guess due to some network issue, I'll have to start from the beginning. I hope you don't mind.
Oh yeah, not an issue.
Hello, good evening. Firstly, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. It means the world to us. Let me share something we did. We went through the questions you all asked during the registrations, and उनमें से बहुत सारे common questions ये थे कि what is GSoC? सारी चीजें हटा दो पहले, ये GSoC होता क्या ये समझा दो. The second was मैंने एक programming language कर ली है, मुझे DSA भी आती है. Am I eligible for GSoC? What is the process? So on and so forth. If you're looking for answers to any of these questions, then my friend, आप एकदम सही जगह पे आओ. Mr. SHIVAY LAMBA and Mr. Mrityunjay Sharma. Mr. SHIVAY LAMBA is a GSoC mentor, open source developer at Layer 5. Mr. Mrityunjay Sharma is a two-time GSoC student, student developer at CNCF, and ex-SWA intern at HackerRank. Let's get started with the webinar. But before that, quick reminder, guys, stick around till the end.
An honor to be present here. There are more than 275 people watching online right now. So thank you so much to everyone for spending your time on a busy weekend. Of course, a very quick introduction about myself. I'm SHIVAY, as already mentioned. I have been a Google Summer of Code mentor in TensorFlow, Jenkins, working on various machine learning projects and mentoring students. And I'm also an open source contributor and maintainer at Layer 5. Alongside with me is Mrityunjay. So Mrityunjay, I would love for you to also introduce yourself.
Hey SHIVAY, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that introduction. And hey everyone, how are you, all of you? So thank you so much to the CodeSetGo members for inviting us and talking about myself. So my name is Mrityunjay, as SHIVAY already told, and I have been contributing to open source for more than 2.5 years now. Not only as these tags, Google Summer of Code, but also other than these tags, also have contributed to other projects like Kubernose, Kubernetes, Docker Slim, Grafana, Prometheus, and other cloud native projects. And I love open source, contributing to open source. I've been previously an intern at HackerRank as well.
Mediums through which you can contribute to open source, and even if you are necessarily not a Google Summer of Code contributor, you can still be involved with open source. So the general context of today's session is going to be surrounding around what exactly is open source, how you can get started with it, and of course how can you become a part of various programs like Google Summer of Code, but also your journey with open source is not going to be just limited to Google Summer of Code as well. Now, when we talk about open source, generally people always category or sort of classify it with software development. But in reality, open source is a lot more than just software development. You could think of it as more sort of a philosophy where you're promoting the idea of being able to share, whether it's your thoughts, your some kind of a thing that you have actually built, right? And people can go ahead and use that, consume that, and even probably redistribute it in their own way, right? So whether it's an actual end-to-end product, or it's the ideation about a product, a design of a product, right? And it's really everything in general. So open source just does not sort of lie with open source. You can think of it in there is no limitation on the basis of your gender, your age, or your geographic location. And source code is what is the source, right? That the source code is open to everyone. So essentially, with open source software, it's a software that the software code is basically open, and it usually comes under with an open source license. We'll of course talk about a lot more about what exactly are the nuances of this open source license. That essentially just tells you how can you actually distribute and use a particular open source project that has been created by someone. And essentially, the main aspect of open source software is that since it is open to everyone, it really promotes collaboration. You have the freedom to use it, redistribute it based on some changes that you have made, right? And also be able to actually use it at any point of time from any geographical location, right? And essentially, since it is open, right, you get a huge community, right? Sometimes projects might have hundreds and thousands of developers contributing to that project. So there's a huge community involvement. People will be interacting with each other and contributing to the code, right? And of course, we'll be looking at a lot more other advantages that comes by being able to contribute to open source. Yeah, we can move to the next slide. All right. So first of all, in case you might not have heard about Linux role system, and he says that in real open source, it's open for collaboration. Experience in software development can contribute to these projects. So because of that freedom, as Linus says that we have the freedom to sort of think how these projects can be built, our open source contributions, that we make. We have complete complete control, because let's say that we talk about in general about a source code software, right? Usually when you're working in a company, right, there's sort of a hierarchy that is maintained. You'll have at the top, you'll have your CEOs, then you'll have your managers, then you'll also have things like your software developers, and there will be various levels. Now, the next thing is that, of course, let's say you get started with your journey as a software developer, you'll have your manager on top of who will be leading you. And then, of course, there will be sort of a vertical hierarchy. But with open source, there is no hierarchy as such. Everyone is given an equal opportunity to be able to contribute. So you can contribute not just in terms of code, but you can also contribute in terms of ideas as well. And that's what makes open source so much more open for everyone for collaboration. And some of the biggest reasons why one should adopt to open source. So of course, one of the biggest reasons is that you do get real world software development experience, right? Of course, I mean, if you're working on, let's say, your own personal projects, that will help you get your fundamentals, correctly. But if you, let's say, want to contribute to projects that are being utilized by thousands and millions of people, open source is a really great way. Because let's say that if you get and you join a company where you are working on certain tools that are more sort of specific for deployment, for even let's say merging your code, testing, all of these that you might not get exposure if you are working on your own personal projects. You can get exposure to such kind of tools and even best practices when it actually comes to programming, such as writing good quality code, using right kind of function names, or even being able to do code reviews. That's something that you can experience by being able to contribute to open source projects, because these projects are being used by so many number of people that there is a certain set of code quality, and then of course best practices when doing software development that comes into the picture. And when you start contributing to open source projects, you can definitely get an experience of that, and that will be beneficial if you go down the line to actually apply for some internships or full-time roles, because that experience of being able to work with actual products and softwares that are used for deployment or for even writing code, you will be getting a first-hand experience of that. Of course, the next one is community bonding, because open source is all about collaboration and community. You not only just get to collaborate with the world's best developers on open source software, but essentially even if you face any issues, you can get a really good mentorship from folks within the open source community, right? And of course, you're getting exposure to a lot of different technologies, to working on products that work on scale, right? And you get to test your skills on working on these kind of softwares, right? And definitely the biggest one is satisfaction. So I mean, I like to sort of give this common analogy that, let's say you work on one of the projects by the name of, like, let's say we have, like, VLS Studio, right? So basically that's an media streaming player. Now let's say that you identify a bug inside of the player, and you are able to identify that and able to solve that. And that bug was affecting, let's say, hundreds and thousands of people, right? And if you're able to successfully solve it and push that code into production, there cannot be, like, any bigger achievement, a feel of sense of achievement that you were able to fix a particular bug that was affecting so many number of people. Because open source deals with such a large number of contributors, and it, is being used by, companies which are like the Fortune 500 companies, or even, hundreds and thousands of developers who are dependent on that open source software. That kind of achievement that you can feel by being able to contribute and showcase your skills to the entire world, that is also something that also comes along with open source. But one of the biggest reasons also is that open source is a lot more secure, because then get resolved as compared to closed source software as well. So you have a general sense of code quality and stability inside of the code when you are working on open source, if that open source project has good number of developers or a lot of developers from around the world. And one of the into open source, right? So you do require some essential tools, right? The first one is Git, or for that matter, at least having some knowledge about version control systems, right? So how basically version control systems work is that essentially, since we are working with a huge number of developers spread across various time zones, right, and you're working on a common code base, there can be at times when some of the contributors might be working on the same project, and within the project they might be working on the same thing, right? So in case if this an entire contribution cycle is not maintained properly, there could be cases where one contribution is mixed with another contribution, or one contributor's work is mixed with another contributor's work. So in order to properly maintain logs and see which contributor contributed what exactly, and being able to maintain an entire history of that, that is where version control systems come into the picture, which allow for greater collaboration on projects and being able to maintain the history to see who contributed what at what time, right? So we use Git. So you'll find Git being used in approximately 90+% of all the open source projects, right? Open source projects might be on GitLab, on GitHub, or these are the various platforms where you can host open source projects. So knowing about Git, various Git commands, is something that is really important. And we'll just resources as well with everyone to get started with Git, right? The official GitHub guide provides some basic concepts about Git, and you can refer to them also. And if anyone needs, we can share some more resources if needed to get started with Git. But of course, apart from just the Git, in case you want to work towards being able to contribute to open source, you need to at least know just at least one programming language, right? So whether it's like C++, Java, JavaScript, because we open source is really popular, right? Today, a lot of companies are, a lot of organizations are adopting open source. So that means that we have a number of open source projects in each and every programming language that we can think of. So even if you are comfortable with let's say just JavaScript, you can get started, right? And you don't need to be a complete pro in any particular open source, in any particular programming language to be able to contribute. Even if you know the basics, you can still contribute to open source projects. And of course, an icing on the cake would be that if you know at least some basic or medium level knowledge of a technology stack of a particular programming language. For that matter, let's say if it's with JavaScript, if you know Merge stack, if you know let's say Node.js on the back end. In case of Python, if you know Flask, Django, if you are working with web-based projects. So just knowing version control system, knowing at least one programming language should be enough for you to be able to get started by contributing to open source, right? And of course, a lot of times people have this kind of a question that at times, even if we are complete starters or beginners, sometimes the code bases of open source projects can be extremely huge in number, right? It can be really large, containing like thousands of lines. So how to be able to actually adopt to that? So the simple answer for this is that you don't need to get worried. Of course, me and Mrityunjay will be speaking a lot more about some good practices when it actually comes to being able to contribute to open source projects. So we'll be covering a few of those tactics. But the idea generally is that you don't need to directly jump into an open source project, and you don't have to wait, right? You can get started with open source right now. If you can create an account on any GitLab, GitHub, and just make a public open source project and start contributing to it. And you don't have to build the next Facebook. You can even build some small software like just making let's say basic calculator. And if you're putting it out in public, other people can come and contribute to it. That is open source, right? So you don't need to be like an expert or a 5-star coder on CodeChef or any other platform. The only thing that you need is passion and some basic knowledge about Git and programming languages, and you can contribute to open source right now. You can become an open source contributor at this moment, right after this session ends. So really, open source is for everyone, anyone, right, with any level of experience. And that is what Mrityunjay now will carry on forward by talking about Google Summer of Code. What exactly is Google Summer of Code? And also talking about some best practices when it actually comes to whenever you want to contribute to any open source project. So over to you, Mrityunjay.
Yeah, thank you, SHIVAY. Thank you, everyone who is listening us, and what an amazing introduction about open source to all the folks who have joined us today. So yeah, now coming to the point which you all are here for. Some are I'm reading in the comments for swags, some are for certificates. Well, let me tell you the most important thing today that will matter in whether you wish to become or contribute as a Google Summer of Code student, or become a good software engineer, or even contribute in open source, or even not contribute in open source, is the motive and the intent behind what you are trying to do. Okay, when you will have that thing in your mind, the intent or the motive, you will be able to achieve only that thing. So remember that swags and certificates are very temporary and good looking things in the beginning years of your career, in the beginning years of your student life, right? So it's just my unwanted suggestion that if you are here for swags and certificates, don't join right now. Go back, join after 1 hour around 7:45 when the swags quiz will be there. Don't listen to me, don't waste your time or my time. Go and listen, go and fill the form of that quiz, and then enjoy your swags. But if you're here for open source and Google Summer of Code, and also swags as a byproduct of that, then of course you can stay and learn about open source. So what is Google Summer of Code? And let me tell you before even we begin, that it's not necessary to do open source. It's not necessary to do Google Summer of Code to contribute to open source. It's an amazing program, but I have seen it become a competition. That is something that disturbs me sometimes. So that's why it's usually whenever I talk about Google Summer of Code, I begin with this warning or with this advice that don't think like it as a competition. It's not JEE Main or JEE Advanced. It's not NEET. It's a collaborative program. Make it collaborative. Don't be competitive in this. You may or may not become a Google Summer of Code student. It not only depends on your proposals, it also depends on the slots that the organization gets. So it's not always because you did not hire something that you cannot become a Google Summer of Code student, or you became a Google Summer of Code student. A lot of factors come into play that we'll be discussing. But that was what I wanted to discuss even before we begin. Okay. And I try to avoid using this word called cracking Google Summer of Code, which some of the folks use. So I will also suggest the folks who are going to learn from here to never crack it, contribute to it, come and join Google Summer of Code or any open source organization. It's not a competition that you have to crack. Now, why this program was made? What is this program? And there are many changes now that we are seeing in this program actually. First of all, Google Summer of Code is not like competitive coding, because I see people are asking like question like they are comparing ICPC. That's a totally different thing, man. And with Google Summer of Code. So again, why it was evolved. So one of the fundamental reasons to evolve or bring this program was to bring contributors like you, yes, the young contributors like you, who are on the threshold, who are beginning, who are not yet aware about like what their journey would be like, who are on the threshold, who know basic things, as Shivai told, basic knowledge of version control like Git, a little bit knowledge of using any programming language, whether it's C++, Python, Java, Go, Rust. And it's an added advantage if you know a particular tech stack, whether it is front end, back end, mobile, anything, even DevOps, even systems. Google Summer of Code is a coding contributed related to open source. That's why here code is important. Otherwise, if you want to contribute to open source, let me tell you, you don't even need to know how to code. Contributing to open source can happen even without that. There are various types of contributions, like whether you can contribute in documentation or in blogs or videos, like or holding sessions like these also count to open source contribution. So Google Summer of Code is an international program that has been designed for encouraging people to contribute to open source software development and also pay them and also mentor them. So it's learning plus earning. And that's why it has so much of, a glamour that people try to get into this program. Why? Because of course it's beneficial. It's good for you. You get mentored by the best of the best in the industry. You also get paid. You also dream to be independent. So this is the starting. This can be a good starting point, but this is not the only starting point. Okay, so now moving to discuss more about like what's GSoC like. So earlier, like there have been many changes. Like when I contributed in 2020 and 2021, the changes were even in those years. This year, all the more changes have come. So let's talk about those changes maybe. So first of all, earlier it was not open to the people who used to work in the industry. It was only open to students above 18 years of age, any student. Like you can be in a bachelor college or a master's college, but now it is open to anyone above 18 years of and older, anyone. So this year, even the people who are working, who are right now full-time employed, even they can contribute as a Google Summer of Code student. So that is a major and a brave and beautiful change, because this can also invite people who are in the industry but haven't been able to get themselves into open source can take part in it. This time we have also two categories of projects, right? So this is going to be very interesting while you are all going to apply. So what I'm going to tell you, that there are two projects. One is the medium-sized projects which are the standard projects that will get around 175 hours this time, and the other are large projects. So this will have extended phases and extended deadline, and it was basically a request of organizations. Like sometimes they have different categories of projects, and sometimes the projects that they are applying may take longer time, and it's not beneficial either for the Google Summer of Code student, neither for the organization if they are not able to complete the project in that limited frame. So that's why this time we brought two categories here. And so be assured when you will be going to apply, like where do you want to apply, in the standard coding period or the extended ones. So the standard coding period is of 12 weeks. However, contributors can extend it to a maximum of 22 weeks with the approval from the mentor. Now, see, the first of all, like people are talking about importance. Importance is like the first and foremost importance at the age, I guess you all will be above 18 or will be between 18 to 20s, right? At this age, one thing that you must or you can be judged by in your career is who you are being mentored by. I saw a similar tweet by one of the most amazing persons I know in the community, Sidhu, and he said that thing, and that really hit me. Like even for me, it is valid. Like if I'm 21 and if I have to judge myself on the basis of salary, on the status, and these things are flooded these days. You have enough of titles, you have even really good packages getting if you perform well. So with blessings of God, I have both. But one thing that I will try to judge myself even by is like, who is mentoring? Who am I being mentored by? And you earn a mentor and not vice versa. So that's what GSoC gives you very easily, I guess. So that's one of the most important point why GSoC has its value. It's because of the mentorship it provides. Other than that, I think what is important is also like, you maybe for the first time will be earning something, right? So that's also, the stipend is vary, but that also gives you an important motivation, and it let you knows the value of the sweat and the blood that you are putting is being paid. The brain that you are putting is being paid. You also feel happy. So that is another thing. And thirdly, I think the intersection, open source is basically the intersection of the startup, what you and established organizations. You have people as motivated as people in the startup, and you have people as experienced in a fully established industrial setup. So you get the intersection of both. So it's another thing that people, the exposure that they get, as Shiva mentioned, is something that's really amazing. So, and what are the goals of this program like? So the goals of this program, if we want to see from the perspective of Google, like why Google created this program. So Google created this program basically only because of this, right? Like it wanted to bridge the gap. Like if you go back 15 years back and talk about students contributing to open source in 2004 or 5, like I know some folks who are in the industry from that era. They tell me like हम तो open source, मतलब open source सुनते भी नहीं थे लोग, मतलब नाम भी नहीं सुनते थे. तो जब से since the time Google Summer of Code has come, that popularity that was needed to get open source to students, like the folks in the industry, the senior people, and some motivated students knew about open source. Open source is nothing very new. It has been there, but that popularity, I think, that gain that happened, especially in India. India, you can gain popularity very easily if you get yourself infused in the student groups, right? And that's why in India, ये सब program और भी viral हो जाते हैं. So population is a big factor for that also, and it's not wrong. I am saying it's absolutely beautiful that India actually respects. We actually respect the amount of fame these kind of program deserves. And the other contribution, the other goal of the program is like it helps open source projects get, even the people who are less excited about their developer journeys, and not just about code but also community, because open source is mainly about people. More than code, it's about community and communication. I'm going to tell you next when we are going to discuss about the steps, or as we quote unquote call it roadmap. Like roadmaps are not specific; they will be different. So I'm not very keen to calling it roadmap also. But let's say a journey, maybe, because journey is unique. Roadmap is like you set the path, and yeah, you have to follow this path, otherwise you would feel that's not right. I mean, that's not appropriate. You may have a different roadmap, I may have a different roadmap, and still we can achieve whatever we wanted. So I'll always know that. And it gives exposure to the real world software development, as I told, and it's create more open source code for all the modules. You are literally impacting, like if you contribute to, maybe, like I'm just giving an example, if you contribute to Linux kernel, you are impacting almost all the Android phones run on Linux, right? Your TV also most probably will be running on Linux. You will be impacting so many folks right now with your just one contribution or 2 line contribution of code. It's just an example. Kubernetes, Kuberno, any project you pick up, Apple ecosystem uses a lot of Kubernetes. Like if you contribute to Kubernetes, you are most probably contributing to a lot of for apps on Apple iOS, or in fact many other features of Apple. In fact, let me tell you, if you have heard about F-16 of this is a fighter jet in the United States, even its hardware runs on Kubernetes control plane, right? So if you contribute to Kubernetes, you may also be impacting that jet. So that's what the impact of open source is. Okay, and you are doing all that wonder from the comforts of your house. So it's a voluntary thing. You are not being forced even by me because of all these benefits. Yes, kar lo. Abhi open source nahi kiya to fail. That's not the case. There are many people who don't do open source who do CP and do well, and there are many people who don't do CP like me and do open source and still are better. Still are good. There's no competition between open source and CP. Both are excellent choices. Whatever suits you. It's an exploratory journey, right? I don't want to name it a roadmap. Now, how does GSoC work? Like, let's talk about a brief overview. Like, what is this program actually running into? Like, what are the things that happen? See, the first thing that happens in this program is like it's like Google acts as an umbrella. You are not going to be directly employed by Google. Okay, so don't think that Google is hiring. Google is not hiring you. You are not even an intern. Google Summer of Code. Let me. Cool. So I'm really sorry again to all of you who are having the patience, and it's really important that technology sometimes it gives us problems. So we have to be patient with that. Like even in open source, there will be bugs sometimes, and I think we are being tested for those skills even here. But yeah, so let's talk about how does GSoC work, right? So we were talking like how first of all, the first thing that happens is that organizations apply. After the organizations apply, it is the prerogative of Google to decide which organization will be selected, and there are a lot of factors based on what projects they are aiming for, what are their community guidelines. Like a lot of factors play into role, and around 199 or 200 organizations are usually selected yearly. And what happens after this? After this, it is where there comes a period where you can come into discussion with the organization which you are interested with, and your interest on a particular organization depends on your tech stack, what you know, what are their projects like. So it is very generic thing, right? You cannot ask anybody. Even if you ask me, I don't know most of you, right? So how can I decide like which organization would be good for you? Which tech stack will be good for you? You know yourself better. So you have to decide here in this phase to which project that you need to reach out, right? And after that, you go on with the proposal work, which we are going to discuss in detail, but I'm just giving an overview. And then mentor organization request slot to Google, and then based on those slots, the mentees are selected, and then community bonding period happens. After that, you start writing the code, and based on the phases of evaluation, you pass or fail in the program. So it's not just getting into Google Summer of Code is a thing. You have to literally work hard for those 12 weeks also to stay in there and contribute and keep getting contributed to open source. Next is like some frequently asked questions that we always face, that we always like, is like, now there are two product sizes, so always know that which are you aiming for, medium size or the extended ones. Depending on that, you will have your schedule. Okay, so that's going to be an important step for you. The second thing is like, many people are asking, I'm new to open source, like can I participate? Yes, of course. 18 years is the only restriction, and see, it's a restriction. Some of you may have mentioned in the comments, because in some countries you cannot pay the students if they are not 18, right? And many other problems happen because of that. You cannot enter into an agreement until unless you are an adult. So that's why this restriction may be. And as long as you are excited and ready to learn from any experience level, you are welcome in Google Summer of Code. It's absolutely a platform for learning, right? So you are not expected to know everything, right? So don't bother yourself with that, what you know, what you don't know. So yeah, so there are two evaluations. Earlier in 2020, when I was a Google Summer of Code student, I think there were 3. Now I guess they have been reduced to 2, and even in 2021, if I remember, it was just 2. So yeah, so if you do not pass either of the evaluations, you fail, and your stipend will not be executed any further after that. So remember that you have to go through those things whenever you get selected, and after that, finally you submit your final product, which can be your live code, or code the repository or a blog. So if it goes into production, then it's well and fine. If it doesn't, also then that's great. It's not that you're expected, but it's good to have that code there. But it's generally like, even if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect that much. So the evaluation is something that even SHIVAY will be able to tell even more better. But yeah, so we have already talked about the eligibility, but just to be more clear, like some other rules are that like important to note is like, not a resident of US embargoed country and not accepted into GSoC before. Only GSoC students from 2020 or later are eligible for second time acceptance. So I guess now it's just reduced to second time. I'm not sure about this part actually, but yeah, this is the new changes in the rule. What is the program timeline? What are the important dates for you, and how we are going to talk through them, like what you are going to do in this every phase. Now this slide is going to be a little important. I will not call it a roadmap, but yeah, certain tips, certain important advice that may help you from my limited experience. So yeah, it's just advice, like it's coming from my experience. I may be wrong, you may be right. So no need to fight, right? So it's a small poem also. So yeah, okay. What is the program timeline this time? So if we see like the 7th Feb, like it's almost near only, I guess. And then till from 7th Feb to 21 Feb, you don't have to worry that much. Yeah, you can look at the archives, the Summer of Code archives page, where you can see the previous year's organizations and see the pattern, like which organization is getting more selected into Google Summer of Code, which is new, which is old. And there is no rule that an old organization which has been always selected will be selected this year also. So always have that thing in mind, right? So it's not a rule as such. You can, of course, do your research work to at least know like what does this organization does, to have an idea about the tech stack and to test your own waters, right? That is a good thing. On 7th of March, it's going to be an important day for you, when you will be actually knowing like the intended organization which you were trying or aiming for has it been accepted or not. So if it has been accepted, well and fine. Even if it doesn't, it's not at all a problem. The world hasn't come to an end. If you have been a little bit into open source or have the knowledge, you can still reach out to a particular organization. And reaching out organization, how do we do that? We usually do that using public channels, right? Now these kind of public channels can be anything. It depends on the organization, and you will have to go to that organization's page, GitHub page, or website to know where the community resides. So it depends on the organization. Like if it's CNCF, talking about CNCF resides on Slack. So if I have to reach out, I have to, and CNCF is also another umbrella like Google. So CNCF has a lot of projects under it. Like I contributed to CNCF's build packs. So I joined build pack Slack and contributed and tried to reach out to them. Not only giving your introduction will work. See, a lot of folks just give their introduction. They are maintainers. They already know that you are here coming for Google Summer of Code. You introducing yourself in the February, they know it. They are very much wise enough to know that yeah, this pan is coming and this person is coming for contributing to Google Summer of Code. So they already know it. You don't have to very deliberate to make yourself very deliberate there. That doesn't look good actually. Okay, so be contextual, give a brief introduction, and I will advise you that whenever you introduce yourself to the community or any organization, whether it's in the Slack or whether it's Discord or whatever's mailing list, like RTMS used mailing list. Now it has shifted to Discord as well. But when I joined RTMS, I had to communicate over the mailing list and keep your communications public, like on public channels. Don't post DMs to people that or the prospective mentors that yeah, I'm working on this. And the DMs are hardly looked, especially to the people whom you are not aware of, whom you haven't met. So DMs won't work. Public channel, you will have public learning. And the tip that I was giving, that whenever you post a message, you will be facing problem, right? Like you will be having some specific doubts, which even Google is not answering. So first of all, try to get that answer from Google. And if you're not able to get that answer from Google, try to put a very specific question, like setting up of your development environment, right? Most of the people face problem in this. Even I have to face problems sometimes. Like I'm setting up my development environment for a particular project. So there are particular dependencies, particular libraries that are required, and maybe some problem is being caused because of the processor or the architecture of my laptop. So I will reach out to the community and the community will help me out. So that in that way, you will give an impression to the community also that this person is genuinely interested in contributing. They are not here just for a tag or for an outcome. They are here for the process. So process matters more than the outcome here. And communication matters more than the code in the initial stages. Okay. So this is what communication is about. You are communicating your things, right? And after that, what happens is that when you get into the community, you know what prospective projects can be, and you start preparing your own proposal. So prepare that proposal as per the template of the organization, or if they don't have a template, just prepare them. Just take an example from the Google Docs and start preparing a proposal and keep on communicating that proposal in the community. Like ask for feedbacks from the prospective mentors, share your views, ask their views. What are the things that can be improved? What is your vision? You don't have to put out all the things very specifically in the project proposal. Even they don't think so that you are, as a beginner, you will be able to do so. But yeah, the project proposal gives an idea of your thought process, of your problem solving. So it's an important measurement, and it's actually the most important measurement. And your previous contributions, if you have done, then that will also give you an edge, right? So that is where these proposals matter a lot. Be very honest in them. Okay, your resume, your proposal, most importantly, your proposal will be the key player. Okay, so this is the phase where I would like to give you tips like be honest, try to research the project deeply, be specific. Okay, try to be specific even in a generic way, but try to don't use just vague words like amazing, big, these kind of things. Like put more numbers, be specific, like what's going to happen with this, what are the problems we are going to solve, what are the approaches, various approaches, not just one approach. If you can find, you can spread out multiple approaches, discuss. The more the discussion with mentors, the better it is. And in the meanwhile, you can also look for good first issues. You can also look for documentation issues if you have find while reading documentation. I while contributing to RTMS, I found spelling mistakes of grammatical mistakes. I fixed them. It's an important mistake to be fixed. So even don't shy away from that. Meaningful contributions are important in the community. And they always help you. Communicating, as I said, will give you an edge. How much you communicate your problems, your solutions, your process, both, all of the things. After that, this happens till 4th April to 19th April. You submit your proposals. After that, on May 20th, that is the day when I wish you all the best, all of you who are watching. I wish to see a lot of Google Summer of Code students from here. After this, what happens is that you code your entire summer, learn, phase 1, phase 2 evaluation happens, you pass, you go ahead, congratulations, successful. And even if you are not selected in Google Summer of Code, not a problem. You have learned so much. You have contributed to open source in some way or other. Even by asking a question, you contribute to open source because you tell that there has been some problem in the documentation that was not known, right? So even that is a contribution. So always remember that Google Summer of Code is not a mandatory thing that you have to do and do, otherwise you are a failure. People do it. Those who get it, great. Those who don't get it, that's also great. It's fine. Don't if you love open source, and even if you don't love open source, fine. And if you love open source, then that love should not only be limited to just Google Summer of Code, right? There are a lot of other opportunities as well, like Outreachy, Linux Foundation. I've also been a Linux Foundation mentee. Have contributed as a CNCF intern to Kubernetes. So that's also another amazing program that I witnessed. And CNCF is an amazing community. The Kubernetes community is also very, very, very helpful. And most of my jobs or the internships that I got, like all the job offers that I have right now. I'm in my final year. I have multiple job offers, and almost all of those job offers have come to me over Slack, Discord, or over Twitter. And that has happened because of open source. So and that has become not only because of open source, because also of the communication part. Like people know that he is able to communicate the problem, and they have a trust because the work speaks for itself. Ultimately, you don't need a resume. My resume is my GitHub profile itself for the projects that I have built or the contributed to. So not one of them even asked for the resume officially, at least. So that's how open source can actually, and it doesn't happen with everyone. I'm also not giving you a wing fly dreams that it will happen with everyone. Maybe I was blessed. Thank you to everyone who has helped me out. But it definitely gives you an edge, open source, that you can make relations with people, not just networking or connections, but relations with people. I have so many friends, even SHIVAY, and I connected because of all these open source contributions, right? And so many people that are my friends right now. In fact, most of my friends are not from my college, but from open source communities. I can very honestly say that I hardly have my friend in my college or even my city. I have most of these friends that I have made from open source communities. So I'm very fortunate to have them, and it is these friends who have helped me get wherever I have gone. So that's why community bonding period is important. That's why May 20th to 12th of June, you will see that what happens is a community period. And those who were doing extended projects, they will be submitting it on 21st of November. So these are some important dates. Take a note of these dates if you are willing to contribute to open source and Google Summer of Code. These are going to be one of the most important dates for you. You can always reach out to me for more tips. If I definitely get time, I will definitely try to reply all of you. And let's look at what kind of impact Google Summer of Code has. Like, it has been there since 2005. We all have been kids since we must be kids since then, right? And since then, it has been impacting more than 18,000 participants and so many families in that way. Over 112 countries. It has 17,000 mentors. Like, that's a huge number. Over 40 million lines of code have been produced with this program. So imagine what is going to be the strength of this batch also. Really looking forward to all of you. These are just some important links that are there in the slide. You can always go and read about more stuffs there. And now I guess we have almost reached the end. And I'm open for questions for next 5-10 minutes. Even if Shivai is also there, even he can come up with us and help answer question from the mentor side, because he has been a mentor. I'm a mentee, so I'm a student. So yeah, we both can help you out, help you all of out. So yeah, looking forward for your questions now. Okay, so yeah, a lot of questions coming in. First question, I guess, is by Anuj Mittal. Anuj, let me answer your question very shortly only. Like, there is no verses. First of all, stop doing this verses thing. Okay, each program has its own benefits. Google Summer of Google Season of Dogs and Google Summer of Codes are two different categories of program. Okay, and Google Season of Dogs is more of for people who are not into proper coding or proper development of a particular software or application. They will be there for the technical documentation of very common and big open source projects. So that requires a little bit of technical knowledge, and technical writing skills can also, although it's open for everyone above 18, I guess, also. But yeah, a little bit of technical writing skills will help. A little bit more knowledge of that particular tech stack about which you are going to write about is going to matter a lot. And it's a little different program from Google Season of Dogs, right? So there's no versus, both are good, whichever it's good for you. I mean, there are so many questions I cannot even see.
Sir, I can help you at this point. Let me figure out some of the questions
yeah,
which you
please.
can answer.
Yeah, right.
So
thank you.
Vag is asking, does programming language matters?
See, like, it depends on that year's projects. Like some year there may be more JavaScript projects, some year there may be more Golang projects. So it depends totally on the organization. It's a matter of luck, I would say, because there's no hard and fast rule. Even if you know C, you can contribute to Linux foundation projects. Even if you know C++, you can contribute to RTMS. You can contribute. Even if you know Python, you can contribute. So it's not a factor that will differentiate anywhere. Like it's up to you. And if you know one language, it's very easy to learn any other programming language. I mean, if you know one language, that's just mostly a Google search away how to write that thing in other language. So it won't be that a big problem.
Right, sir. So Utkarsh is asking, how many times can we participate? Is there an upper limit?
See, till the time I was very active, I mean, as I told you recently, like there are not changes in the rule, but till the time I participated last year, we have this thing called that we can participate thrice. Shivai, do we have any knowledge about this? I think we can participate thrice and not more than thrice, but now I guess it has been limited to twice only, if I know it right. So I guess you can participate, like if you're selected. I'm talking about the selected ones. Okay. Otherwise, I think as long as you are a student, you can keep on applying. There is no restriction in that. But if you are selected and you wish to reapply again as a Google Summer of Code, then I guess it's just twice now. Well, I'm not sure about it. You can Google it always. There must be in the Google Summer of Code FAQs. You will get that question. Okay, during my time, it was three attempts.
Yeah, you can continue, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amol is asking, what should we mention in our proposal being a newbie?
It depends on the project, right? Being as a newbie, you can mention your any side project that you have built, right? You can talk about your, even if you haven't built anything in that case, you can also talk about your, like in the personal section only, about your school projects or school achievements. But most of that proposal will be your project related discussion, right? Like in which phase, what are you planning to do? So it has to be related to the project only. It has to be related to you. It has to be related to what you are going to do. So it's always there. Like you can always Google research about the project and then make up bullet points, create a draft proposal first, and then share that draft proposal to your mentors, to the community, or the other experienced members from that particular community to learn about it, and then move ahead with that.
Okay, sir. So Risha is asking, I have solved a few good first issues, but have not been active in the past 3 months. Will it be an issue while making decisions by the organization?
No. Not even if you haven't made any one contribution. I didn't make any contribution to in 2020 to my organization. Even while applying, I was just discussing with them. I'm being very honest, and you can see it on GitHub. I didn't make any contribution to Artemis. Maybe after applying, I made 1 or 2 documentation changes. That's it. So it's not at all a problem. That won't be a judgment. The judgment will be based mostly on the proposal and how you communicate with your mentors. Are they happy to work with you? Are you giving that vibe? That's what matters.
Okay, so Mr. SS is asking, so can you please explain how practically now we should begin for open source and GSoC? Which website and which basic ways to start?
See, that's the Mr. SS, whoever is that. See, you can begin anytime. Like now is also the good time. Even tomorrow is the good time if you didn't begin. And it's not that you have to begin. You just do it to explore yourself, right? You are on an exploratory journey. If you find it good, if you find that, yeah, you have to do it, you can go ahead with that. Otherwise, there are a lot of other options. And secondly, since I don't know your tech stack, I cannot send you your website. Even if I know your tech stack, it will be very difficult for me to give something that you like or your taste is. So it's a very relative question, right? So you will have to do your research about that. You will have to grind both to find which organizations match your tech skills, because you know yourself better, whether you know Python or HTML or CSS or JavaScript, and how much can you pick up learning if you are aiming for Google Summer of Code. Even if not this year, if you are in the first year, learn for next year, skill accordingly. And even if you want to contribute to this year, you know your waters, you know your skills, search accordingly, right?
Okay, sir. And Parth is asking, can we manage GSoC project with studies?
Of course. That's mostly will not be a concern, but even if it's your concern, sometimes exams, test, just tell your mentor, right, that you might not be available for a few days, for a couple of days. It's always allowed. They are very, very empathetic in that sense.
Okay, and Vaibhav is asking, can we create our own project rather than the organization one?
What? I'm sorry.
So I think the person is asking about, can you contribute your own project into the GSoC rather than contributing into the project which are listed by the GSoC organizations?
I'm not sure if that's still the rule, but I guess it was there some point of time to have your own. But I guess no, that happens in Smart India Hackathon. I don't think so. That's even a rule here. Like in the selected organizations, you can of course discuss with your organizations. Like in a particular organization, like CNCF, like in CNCF build packs, you have a particular, or even in RTMS, you have a particular idea to implement. So you can always discuss that I have this idea. Is this issue is not listed? Can I work on this issue? It depends on the mentors, because if the mentee already knows what they have to do, why do they need a mentor, right? Mentor and mentee cannot be the same, right? So you will have to propose your idea itself to the mentors or to the maintainers of the community. If they like the idea that feature has to be implemented, you can definitely research more about it and contribute to it. But that has to be within that organization, right? You cannot have your custom problem statement.
All right, sir. So Mona Lisa is asking, how can we contribute to the organizations of GSoC before applying for applications to highlight our proposal at that time?
If you want to contribute, you go to that organization, good first issues. There are a lot of good first issue label there, right? find those good first issues, try to contribute. Even if you are not able to contribute, try to ask your questions based on that issues that you have in the public channel of that community. That will already give you a little bit of attention in the community that this person is trying to solve. Maybe with that help, you are able to solve that issue. So always go to the repo, find beginner issues and good first issues. There are always labels there on the GitHub issues section. So that is something that you will have to look at those labels. That is an excellent point of start. Otherwise, you can also contribute to document. If you see any spelling errors or grammatical mistakes, you can always make a pull request and contribute there.
Okay, sir. And Sumit is asking how much time we have to give GSoC per day after selection.
It depends on the project, but 4 or 5 hours is enough mostly per day. I'm talking about 5 days a week.
Right, sir.
I guess these many questions are enough. If we don't have any more questions, like I have to leave now. Maybe. If there is any important question, definitely among you can ask. Otherwise, it's time, and maybe I will have to leave now. Thank you so much, everyone who joined today for this amazing session. It was fabulous having all of you. Sorry for the technical glitches that you all faced. Really happy to connect with all of you. You can reach out to both of us on our Twitter IDs. We have mentioned I'm mostly active on Twitter. I really do check LinkedIn, but yeah, you can also connect with me there. But yeah, mostly Twitter. Twitter will be a better platform to connect with me. You can always follow me there. That's my handle, Mrityunjay394. And other than that, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you and your loved ones are good in this pandemic. Please take care of yourself. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Team CodeSetGo, for having me, for having Shivay. We are really honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good evening, everyone who has joined us today from all over the country. I'm Umang Mehrotra, and I'll be your moderator for today's quiz. This section of our event is sponsored by Scalar. They have built the largest online tech community in India. You can join their community for free by visiting discord.gg/Scalar and interact with the people who have similar interests. There are learning and fun activities all the time, including resume reviews, mock interviews, Pictionary games, and quizzes. The best part is that you can earn Scalar tokens by being active there and redeeming them for goodies like backpacks, power banks, PlayStation 4, and more. I repeat, you can join this community for free by visiting discord.gg/Scalar. Also, for the certificates, you have to fill up the feedback forms that we will release at the end of this quiz. It's a rapid fire quiz consisting of 15 multiple choice questions based on data structures and algorithms. And you will get 5 seconds to read the question. After that, 4 options will appear and only one of them is correct. Depending on the question, you will get 10 to 15 seconds to select your answer. The question will proceed automatically and there is no negative marking. And after each question, you'll get to see the leaderboards. The fastest participants to answer the maximum correct answers will be ranked and declared as winners who will get t-shirts. And for the Scalar tokens, you can redeem those tokens for the merchandise. To join the quiz, click the link in the description and enter the code flashing on your screens. Now, this is really important that in the name field, you have to enter your email addresses because that will help us contact the winners. We cannot consider any entry without their your email addresses. Wait till the time for the quiz to start. Thank you. I wish you Okay, guys, so there is a slight change of plans. In the name field, you have to enter your real name, not your email address. Okay, I'm repeating this again. You have to enter your real name, not your email address, and wait till 7:55 when we will start the quiz. Okay, all the best. Okay, guys, so we are starting the quiz in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the quiz is live. Hello participants. As you know that now we have our winners of the quiz. I congratulate Krishna Joshi for being at the first position with 618 points, Meghraj for second position with 609 points, and Snega for 590 points. So the first three winners will get a combination of t-shirts, notebooks, and mugs from Scalar. And the other participants who have achieved a rank from 4 to 10 will get Scalar tokens, which they can ultimately redeem for other swags. So I request everyone from rank 1 to 10 to contact us on our email IDs with this screenshot. Also, for everyone who is willing to get a certificate of participation, we have pasted a link in our chat box of the feedback form. You can fill the feedback form from that link. I once again repeat that everyone who has achieved a rank from 1 to 10 to contact us on our email ID to get your swags and your certificates of winning. Now that ends our event, and I thank each one of you for joining us today. You have shown immense encouragement and participation on the chat and on the quiz platform. You all have been a terrific audience. You can also follow us on our social media handles to get news about any of the future events that we are planning. Thank you, and everyone have a good day.